Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Need to Talk. I am your host, Derek, and today we need to talk about Battle on the Border. That's right. If you watch the Double D podcast, which I'm assuming you do, then you know that me and Darren work with Battle on the Border. But how did it all start? Well, let's back up even further. Let's go to the year 2000, the year that I was born. My mom tells my dad, do not make him become a professional wrestling fan. I don't want it. I can only deal with one wrestling fan. I can't deal with two. My dad naturally says, yeah, I won't do that. Now look at me. Obviously, he watched wrestling with me. I became a professional wrestling fan. I've been watching it ever since I was about six or so. It was probably earlier than that, but that's when anyone asks me, this is what I say. I always say six. Darren, on the other hand, was not a professional wrestling fan through his whole life, where I was. Um, Watched it. I went to my first live event when I was 9. I went to a pay-per-view when I was 11. It connected me with some friends that I had back in the day when I was in like elementary school. Didn't really ever talk to Darren about it. Or if I did, I doubt he listened, because he wasn't interested in it at the time. In elementary school, like I said, it connected me with with friends, and then at some point it kind of became uncool. Wrestling became uncool. Kids grow up, they grow out of professional wrestling. It didn't for me. It was one of the main ways me and my dad connect. Um, so I, never even really ever thought about professional wrestling, not watching it. I mean, there was definitely a period where we didn't watch it as much because the product on TV was bad, but I mean, never ever thought about not watching it. So, a little bit of background there. I'm a big professional wrestling fan, have been my whole life, pretty much my whole life. And then Darren, on the other hand, new to professional wrestling as of the day of this recording, even still. So, flash forward now to 2021. When we started doing the podcast, we didn't really know why we wanted to do it. Fun fact, April 25th, 2021 was the day that the podcast started. And it was a great day for me. I started a relationship at the time with my girlfriend. Um, Won a game in Fortnite, pitched a perfect game in MLB The Show, and started a podcast. I cannot even make that up. It was one of the wildest days of my life. So much shit happened. It was crazy. And people sometimes, I don't really get this question a lot, but I wonder if people wonder. The reason that we started the podcast is interesting because I started listening to podcasts because of Joe Rogan interviewing Kanye West, which, whoa. But that was what started it because I thought, man, that's a crazy, just a group of people there. I've seen a lot about Joe Rogan. He's interviewing Elon Musk and all this. I see clips from it all the time. And it looks kind of funny. I was going to check it out. I was listening to it and I was like, huh, I've never really listened to podcasts before, but I kind of like this. Started going out and finding all these different podcasts. Find out like Chris Jericho has one. Start listening to it. Mick Foley eventually has one. I'm listening to that. I'm listening to music podcasts. I'm listening to like Barstool Sports stuff and fucking whatever I can find. And I just become involved in it. And at the time, I was actually still friends with one of my exes, and I told my ex about how this was probably like December of 2020 that I told her this. I was like, I think I'm a real big fan of podcasts. Like, I was trying to pitch her like to fucking listen to them. And she said something along the lines of like, I feel like you could do one. You like to talk. You sound like you have the voice for it. Like you could do it. And I was like, huh. I'm like, oh, I'll think about it. And I didn't even know about how to go about doing one. Like, how do you do it? I if I did it, I wanted to do it right. I wanted to have microphones. I wanted it to sound professional. I didn't want me to just set up a phone and talk into it. Although that's kind of what we did. So fast forward now to April, and that day, like I said, April 25th, we do one. And the original idea we had, let's actually back up again a little bit. Sorry, to early 2020, um, where there was we at the time, me and Darren lived together with Darren's girlfriend, um, and we lived there with another couple. So there was two couples, and then me. I was fourth wheeling, and this couple, I had mentioned it to them and to Darren, and they were on board. Maggie was not on board, which is Darren's girlfriend. Said she was not on board. But the other couple was because they went to school and did some like class where they had to do a podcast. So they kind of had some background into it or whatever. And so we came up with an idea where we were going to call it something like the terrible 20s or something. It was going to be about a bunch of 20-year-olds talking about how terrible our lives were because at the time fucking they were depressed or whatever. And me and Darren were like, whatever. It sounds fine. They went to school. Maybe they know more than us. And they were like, well, we're going to come up with like a script every day, what we're going to talk about, like a layout. And then me and Darren were like, oof, this is not sounding fun. And I remember me and Darren kind of being like, well, let's just get through it. Let's see how it goes, whatever. Maybe they, like I said, maybe they know more. Turns out we ended up having a falling out with that couple. And then Darren, like one of the first things that me and Darren talked about after they moved out was like, hey, are we still going to do that podcast? Like we were not fans of them at the time. And, so we were like, oh, fuck them. But are we still going to do this podcast? Because, I mean, it was something interesting to do. And so a couple months go by and finally figure out that there's this app called Anchor, which guys should go download. If you want to do a podcast, you don't even have to buy anything fancy. You just use the Anchor app. You can put up your phone and just do one. That's how we did it. And our friends, surprisingly, a decent amount of my friends actually wanted to do one and thought it would be interesting. And I was really happy with it. And so we did their podcast for like, I don't know, 8 months on just Spotify and Anchor. And we would just talk about random shit. Like I'm assuming there's a decent amount of people who are listening to this who are on our YouTube side or maybe even our Spotify side or whatever, who only know us, me and Darren, doing wrestling stuff, or only watch us when we do our wrestling stuff, or maybe don't watch us doing our wrestling stuff. So I'm hoping to bring everybody together here. We would just talk about random shit. I mean, whatever we could do. Sometimes it was a little bit more social, like what was going on in the world, political, sports. Sometimes we would just joke around. We would have friends on and just talk about whatever the fuck would come up. Like we would just kind of keep it fresh and new and different, and always kind of like every episode was just kind of chaotic. And I like that. There was no structure. It was kind of cool to just be able to sit down and just relax and just have fun. And so we finally get on YouTube and we do the same thing where we're kind of just going with the flow, doing whatever. Comes time around December where Darren's, about to have a kid. It was getting really, really close to the time that he was going to have a kid. And I remember this because Maggie actually attended the first ever Battle on the Border event with me and Darren. She hated it, but hey, thank you for coming out at least. So, fun story. So I'm on Facebook a couple days before a Friday. It was like a Wednesday or something. And I see this flyer on Facebook, and it was really weird because I wasn't friends with any wrestlers at the time. I wasn't friends with Denim on Facebook. I wasn't friends with anybody. I didn't know anybody who shared it. I don't even know how it came up. And maybe because I liked some like AEW fan pages or something. And so maybe Facebook just recommended it to me. But I saw that it was this place called Battle on the Border. And I'm looking through their history and I'm like, man, Brian Pillman's been here. This is pretty cool. Where are they at? Oh, they're going to be in Lawrenceburg, huh? But Fridays were the day that me and my girlfriend would hang out. So I just assumed I couldn't go. Friday comes and the weather's pretty bad. And my girlfriend at the time, she used to come over and hang out at the house with me and Darren and Maggie. And the weather was pretty bad. It was raining. It wasn't like super cold. So the weather, like the roads weren't like slick or whatever, but she just didn't like driving in the rain. And she lived like 30 minutes away, probably 45 minutes away, depending on, if you take the highway or not. And she was like, I can't come. The weather's too bad. I don't want to make it out. You and Darren can do so, whatever you guys want. Don't worry about it. I'll be over tomorrow. And I was like, all right, cool. So I asked Darren, I was like, hey, remember that Battle on the Border event I saw on Facebook? And I'm like, Darren, would you be interested in going? And he was like, fuck yeah, why not? he's like, oh, I only got like 2 weeks of, being able to do whatever the fuck I want, like, and not have any like kid to worry about. So he's like, so let's do it. I was like, all right. Maggie comes along with us and we go. And we enjoyed the event. It was a good time. Denim was facing Sergeant Ledbetter in the main event. I hate to say this, but I've been to so many events now that I really only remember that. I remember Dirtbag Dan was there. But man, and Carson Drake was there. He lost to Paxton Calloway. I do remember that. That was kind of kind of the only things I really remember. I remember being kind of starstruck that Bobby Fulton was there. So there was a lot of things. It was just kind of cool to see, and I enjoyed it. And I remember I left, and I asked Darren, and Darren's like, "Yeah, it was pretty cool." And they were doing an event the next day, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to that?" And he was like, "Well, we'll see. We'll see. Like if I can go, like I'll try to talk, because Maggie at the time is like ready to bust. I mean, she's like at any moment could pop this kid out." So Darren ended up not being able to go. So I was like, "Ah, fuck it. I'll just stay home." A couple of months go by, and then finally I started following Battle on the Border on Facebook because I was like, well, I want to go with Dad one time because I think Dad would really like it. And I see Denham Blevins, who's the promoter and owner of Battle on the Border, shared a post that said that they were looking for sponsors. And so I kind of look at Darren, and I'm jokingly saying, I was like, hey, we should ask and see if the podcast could be a sponsor. Like, why not? And he's like, yeah, we should. Fuck, like, why not? So he's like, why don't you message him? And I'm like, I was like, I was kind of just joking around. I didn't I didn't really think you were gonna say, be serious. And he's like, no, do it. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to. I was like, you do it. He's like, fuck it, I'll do it. So he messages Denham and says, hey, we're the Double D podcast. We saw your post about being a sponsor for Battle on the Border. Would you be interested? Or we're interested if you want to do something. So we talked to Denham for a while. He came up with the idea of coming on our podcast, which at the time would have been our second interview ever. At the time, I think we had only interviewed Jaden Mullen, who's a rapper from Boston. We had only interviewed him. So we were like, well, we have a little bit of interview experience, and I'm talking with somebody who's the promoter and owner of a wrestling company. This would be kind of cool, up my wheelhouse. Dad couldn't make it, unfortunately, but I was like, hey, let's just do this. So we interviewed him. It went well. And so we would go to the show. Darren couldn't make it to the next show. This was actually, funny story, Night of Champions just passed 2 days ago as of recording this. It just passed, but that was the first event I went to there. Brian Pillman was making his return, was going to be facing Carson Drake, and it was a really, really cool. It was a really good show, really cool show. We went. Me and my dad went. Sophia, with my girlfriend at the time. Sorry, she went, and we also had another couple tag along with us. Philly, for any of those who are listening, Philly has only been on. That's a deep cut. It was one of the throwback episodes we might have to post up there. Was when Philly made his debut. For audio listeners, you might have seen that, listened to that episode. But we had a big group come with us, and my dad goes over to Denham, and he's like, "Hey, what would it take for my son to get an interview with some of your wrestlers?" And I was thinking, Dad, man, what the fuck are you talking about? It ain't gonna happen. And Denham said, "Well, I think we can make it. We can try to figure out a way to make it work." I was like, "All right, cool. Wow, that's crazy." So my girlfriend goes up and gets a picture of Brian Pillman at the time because she was in love with him. So anyway, we leave. A couple days, a day or two goes by, and I'm like, I might as well shoot Denham a message. I shoot him a message, and I'm like, hey, if you're interested in working something out with us, like I talked to Darren about it, even though he wasn't at the event. He was like, let's see. Like, I would be kind of cool if we could like promote him or whatever. So I shoot Denham a message, and I'm like, hey, if you want to like try to figure out a way to make this work where we can maybe be in a sponsor, whatever, of the show. We'd be willing to promote you or whatever. So we worked something out. And he says, well, I'll try to hook you guys up with some interviews. So that's kind of where it started. We interviewed Russell Actful Bland first. Well, Denham was the first one, technically. But then after we had like officially agreed on a sponsorship kind of thing, it was Russell Actful Bland, and then Hooks, Justin Xavier. The Bad Dudes have been on an episode. Since then, Carson Drake, Jaden Jett, Sergeant Ledbetter has been on. King Bomani has been on. We've had a crazy amount of people. We've Savion has been on from Cincy Wrestling, which we'll kind of get to later on down the road here. But yeah, it just grew out of hand. Go and check out the playlist on our channel here of all the interviews we've done. If I'm missing somebody, I apologize. It's not me. Congo Kong. How could I forget? Rob Conway. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, and I apologize. Just kind of getting the big, some of the names that kind of popped into my head first. So anyway, we did that for a while, and eventually Darren, obviously, if you guys have listened long enough, you know that Darren's a DJ, very good DJ. He's been into speakers as long as I've been into wrestling. I mean, he knows a lot about speakers. He could look at a speaker, know exactly like the fucking specs and everything about it right away. So it was really so he's into that. And he thought about like, man, if there's a way that I could do sound for a wrestling organization, that would be really cool. And the opportunity presented itself where we had told Denham he had listened to the podcast. He knew that Darren did some DJing stuff and he was in a pinch. He needed someone to do the sound. And Darren stepped up. And since then, we've been doing sound. We've been doing sound now for 5 or 6 shows in a row. I think. I don't really know. And if you go to a Battle on the Border event, that's where you see us. You see us overdoing sound. We're responsible for and by we, I mainly mean Darren. I help keep his head on straight, but he does all the actual button pushing and knows it sets everything up. I mean, I help him with like the physically carrying shit in, but all this, like everything else is kind of on him. He's a fucking champ, man. He's killing it. But you'll see us over at that table and we're busy. I mean, I kind of just to take a little bit of a back, kind of show everybody what we do. If a wrestling event for Battle on the Border starts at like 6, which they usually start at like 6:30. So if it starts at 6:30, doors open at 6. Well, we have to be there kind of early. Denham gets there, depending on where it's at, gets there at a certain time. It varies, but I mean, usually it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock ish. Gives us the ring enough time to get the ring put up and the sponsors to get there and whatever. So we get there as soon as we can, and we get set up as soon as we can, so we can help set up chairs. If needed, help put the ring together. Then we got to get wrestlers' music, and we got to. At first it was kind of awkward. It was kind of weird. We didn't know any of these wrestlers. Now we kind of know some of them, just because we've been around. They kind of recognize us, so they kind of know that we're the sound guys, and they'll come up to us and be like, "Hey, you got my music? Yeah, we got your music." We keep a list now, so we don't have to ask everybody, because the last thing we need to be is any type of distraction from them. So we're trying to just now we keep a list, and if somebody new comes in, we have to go up and we have to ask, we have to do what we do, but we have to get it done. I mean, we're trying to help put on an experience and a show, and give the wrestlers what they deserve, man. I mean, they deserve a good entrance. They deserve loud music. They deserve to be able to come out and have that moment, because these guys are unbelievable performers, and they put their lives on the line, man, and they fucking kill it every single event. It's just an amazing experience to be able to see all these events in a row, and see the hard work pay off for these guys, and it's been really, really cool. So, but I mean, now it does at this point kind of seem like a job, which I don't necessarily hate. I think that's a good thing. We take it very seriously because, like I said, we do not want to fuck up one of these wrestlers' entrance. Man, they deserve a great entrance, and we try to help as much as we can with that. And there's times where it's very fucking stressful because we're working with technology and a microphone will go down, or Darren doesn't have the right song loaded up for whatever reason, just didn't add the right one, or his iPad disconnected, or his fucking one of his speakers is going lower or whatever. It gets a little stressful, and it does kind of feel like a job now, but it's a job that I enjoy, and it's really, really cool. And it's a lot of stress, man. I mean, I look forward to these events a lot. I mean, I really look forward to these events. Weeks out, we're promoting it, um, and it's really cool to be able to interview these guys and whatever. It's so much fun, and I enjoy that side of it a lot. That's where I really, really like. I really like doing that side of it, the promotion side of it, and being able to give these wrestlers a platform. Man, they, like I said, are hard workers, and I don't even know the half of what they go through. So giving them the props that they deserve is super important to me, and I think I think we try to do a decent job of that. And for weeks, I got this show built up in my head where I'm like, man, I can't wait for this match. I can't wait to see this, whatever. And then I get there and I'm trying to keep notes and help Darren out with the sound and all this stuff. And it's just, it's a lot. It's stressful, man. And, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. And, I hope that what we do, um, I hope people enjoy it. I think that's the big thing that I've always been kind of nervous about. And I don't really talk about it too much, but the big thing for us, like when we started the podcast, was that we kind of just did it to waste time, like not waste time, but to give us something else to do because like during that time period, there was a lot of like drinking and not being able to go anywhere because of COVID. And then like when we started the podcast in 2021, like I had just turned 21 and that's when I started my drinking, of course. But there was a lot of like it's like in 21, like when I turned 21, like if we didn't have that podcast to do, I don't even know where my life would be. Like, there was weekends where I was like I drank, whatever, but I didn't go out. Who knows? I could have been I could be a bar rat. You know what I mean? I could just be going to bars every weekend, which I definitely don't do now at all. But no, it gave us something to look forward to where we didn't have that for all of 2020. And then 2021, it gave us something to look forward to. We used to like do our recordings every Friday or Saturday or whatever. And when we started it, it was just like, we'll just sit the microphone, our phone down and shoot the shit. Then we upgraded to nicer microphones and it was like, take it a little bit more seriously, but it's still going to be the same thing. Then we upgraded to a YouTube video. Everybody was like, you know, take it a little bit more seriously. We want to get like the production, kind of get like a set and a production. And now, and then when we started working for Battle on the Border, that whole philosophy of video and podcast style was kind of put aside. It was kind of put aside where now we had to completely, without any experience before, take not only the podcast extremely seriously, but do due diligence to people who don't know us from Adam, who we're trying to help promote. And ultimately, that's what I want to do with the podcast is promote these wrestlers who I'm a huge fan of and can respect the shit out of what they do in the body, the toll they put their bodies through and the hard work that they put in. Like I said, I don't even know half of the fucking hard work they put in. I couldn't imagine what they do, but I want to promote them and ultimately still have to make it entertaining for people. And, getting recognized, the little bit that we get recognized at events is kind of cool. And it's cool, having people come up and say, "Hey, like I really enjoyed that last podcast you guys did." It feels good, if it does feel good. And it reminds me that, hey, there are people listening and I just want to be entertaining and I want you to learn something, and like I said, to ultimately just give due diligence to people who deserve it, man. And I hope we do that. And I hope we've gotten better at our interviewing skills since we started. I hope that the podcasts themselves have just gotten better. I know there's a lot of people out there who are listening, who or watching, who don't enjoy the wrestling stuff because they don't watch it or they're not a part of it. And listen, if you're not a fan of wrestling, I'm not going to be able to probably convince you to become one, but I think you should. If you're in the area, you should go. I really think it's a really fun time. The atmosphere itself is so fun. The event itself, it was $10, $12. It's just a good time. I highly recommend it to people who, even if you're not a huge fan of wrestling, I think it's a good time, just to distract yourself. The world is going to shit. The world is crazy. It's a crazy place. There's so much fucking drama everywhere. And, it's just nice to be, for me, it's always been just go and it's a release. I just get to involve just lose myself into what's going on in the ring, and that's it. And I don't have to worry about anything else at that moment, and that's what wrestling means to me. And that's what Battle on the Border has been able to give me. So it's been a lot of fun. So I highly recommend it, but it's just been a wild learning curve. And, this podcast is always going to be, the Double D podcast is always going to be, we're always going to try to find that balance between doing professional wrestling stuff and non-professional wrestling related stuff. It's hard because a lot of what we do is professional wrestling related now. And I know that sucks for some people, but it's something that me and Darren truly do enjoy. I mean, Darren is converted into a wrestling fan. He loves it. He, looks forward to it every single weekend, and he's still learning a lot. He's still learning a lot about wrestling, because he's new, but his heart's in the right place, man, and he does a great job with the wrestling, and he's learning very fast. He's got a lot of shit on his plate, and the fact that he makes any time for it, I just appreciate that, and all the hard work that he puts in with the sound, and you know, hey man, we're trying, hard work. It's a lot of shit going on, and we don't always do a great job of I'm sure there's times where I've left an interview, I know for a fact, where interviews before where I'm just like, oh man, why didn't I ask this? Why didn't I do this? So I try not to listen to them, but feedback is very much appreciated. And like I said, I appreciate it. I do. But yeah, man, it's stressful. It's a stressful thing that we do. But it's not nearly as stressful as what they do in the ring, man. And like I said, anything that can promote them ultimately is all that matters. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. I don't see us leaving from the indie wrestling scene out here in the Ohio, Indiana area anytime soon. We really like Battle on the Border. They've been nothing but nice to us. We've had nothing but hospitality from the talent, the security. So thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this, who's a part of Battle on the Border, for welcoming us with open arms, man. It's been a lot of fun. Don't imagine us leaving anytime soon. This is something I want to do for a while, and I think that things can change anytime. But as of now, yeah, this is the Double D podcast is always going to be involved with Battle on the Border for as long as I can see. I don't see why it would change anytime soon, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It would take Denim telling us like you're no longer fucking welcome for us to not be there. And, hey, we go to after parties and stuff. We have a good time. Try to let loose and have a good time. It's crazy, man. It's been a crazy ride, and maybe one day we'll go a little bit deeper on it. I just wanted to kind of give people the backstory of how we got involved, in case people didn't know, or to at least go a little bit deeper on it, and then kind of just give people kind of like a review of what we do. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube and you're not on YouTube right now, go to YouTube right now. Open that bad boy up and type in the Double D Podcasting Crew and subscribe, like, comment on all our videos. You can follow us on Instagram, the double_D_podcast. On TikTok, the Double D Podcast 1. Twitter, DJDub00. I tweet about wrestling and other shit sometimes. Make sure to go to Facebook and Battle on the Border Pro Wrestling on Facebook. Like the page, join the BOTB Brigade. Make sure you come out to events. The next one is in River City. It's River City Wrestling. It's on a Sunday. I think it's May 7th. As of the day of recording this, there's only one match that's been announced, and it is a Hooks and give me a second. King Kong Pete. I remembered his name as I was picking up the phone, but I want to make sure I'm right about this before Yes, River City Wrestling at River City West Ballpark in Harrison, Ohio, Sunday, May 7th. King Kong Pete versus Hooks. It should be a great event. Looking forward to it. King Kong Pete is trying to get that title, the hardcore title, off of Hooks. Come out, make sure you enjoy it. Say hey to us if you see us. And like I said, man, it's a great time. So go and give them a follow on Facebook. You can also go to w.gg and use code Double D Podcast. That is DOUBLEDPODCAST, Double D Podcast, to get 10% off your W order. Again, that's w.gg, code Double D Podcast, DOUBLEDPODCAST, to get 10% off of W products. It's a great energy drink, no crash. It's the only energy drink I drink. Love it. Good stuff. So thank you guys. Like I said, hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.